The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Hey, what's up, Doug?
All right, buddy. What's going on, man?
Just chilling, man. Enjoying the interview here. I actually used the shit out of ChatGPT or Nano GPT. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like pretty regularly send them messages. Actually, the only thing that I would ask is if they could integrate, and I guess I wish he was kind of still here on stage.
Let me try to bring it back up. Let's see. He might be responding. Milan, if you're there.
I'm here.
Hey, the only like real major thing that I could ask for is if you guys had a way to contact you natively inside the app, where I could send you a message and be like, hey, this conversation, take a look at this. This little thing went wrong here. Because I send you guys feedback pretty often on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would be nice sometimes in certain conversations to not have to expose my identity, but still point out that there was a problem there.
So we have this now. If you have a message, there's a sort of triangle with an exclamation mark to report a bug, which then gets sent straight into like our Discord with like, this is an error, check this out. And you can add as much or little information as you like. So you can type something, you can attach the message if you want to, and you can attach a screenshot, I think. And you can, if you want to, attach how you want to be contacted, but there's no need to. And then we get it in our developer Discord. But it isn't like back and forth yet, which would be even better, of course. And then we have the same for the suggestions. That's a sort of, it works the same way as the bug report.
Oh, okay, right on. Yeah, I guess I haven't been astutely observing the changes to the icons at the bottom. But
yeah, we make too many changes too quickly. It's like I don't know, 50 commits a day. So we sometimes we need to make it clear what's been changed and what's been added. So you're right.
Honestly, I'm one of those users that even if you gave me a pop-up that said we changed all of this stuff, I'd be like, I don't care X, and I wouldn't look at it, and then I'd probably send you a message a week later being like, hey, y'all should add this. Be like, yo, we sent you, like, we gave you a pop-up.
I mean, we should make it clear enough that it's there, right? That's on us, I think, to improve the UX. So I'll see how we can make it clearer. Maybe make the triangle thing red or something.
No, I'm just retarded. Don't worry, man. It's definitely not.
But thanks. It's good to know that was a good change to make.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. But any other questions for him, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take Milan off stage. He's welcome to hang out. I hope he does. Shortwave is saying, tip 10 cents. I'm the crazy person who just used AI for the first time recently because I demand the ability to use false models. Yeah, no, we know, Shortwave. You are very principled. You're also the guy who prices everything in Monero on XMR Bazaar and tells everybody else to price it in Monero. And we greatly respect your principled approach to things. Bawdy, man, go ahead, take it away. Unless you got some small talk you wanna throw out there first.
No, I don't think so. I guess I could like just throw a quick opinion about some of this LLM stuff. I have tried to run local LLMs. They're okay if you just want something to like kind of spit some words back at you, or maybe you want some like syntax evaluation on very simple code. But unless you have like two 4090s and you can at least run something like Llama 3.0, which actually was reasonably good. I say reasonably good, but not truly good. You're just not getting the same quality. Like if you need to do real work and you need real answers and you need like the other thing, maybe you could use something like Llama for that you could run locally, like realistically run locally without a $100,000, $500,000 GPU cluster, right? To run like 3.1 or something. Is if you could use it for like document syntax parsing, so like maybe you've got some long legal document or you want it to like parse some medical documentation, maybe blood tests or something, and you want to like arrange it in a CSV, like you can do that kind of stuff. It's still kind of error prone. The latest models, like the absolute latest models, Gemini Pro, for example, Claude 4 with extended thinking, and obviously O3. These models are getting actually pretty reasonably good at doing limited amounts of code. So like if you have an architecture and a spec and you have a function, hey, write this function for me, you're still going to have to review it, and there's probably still going to be a mistake or two there. But all I'm saying is that, yeah, I mean, this notion of, hey, I'm going to run a local AI model on my CPU, you can, but it's a quant model and the outputs are garbage. All you're going to get is something that tells you, that kind of spits out some words at you, which is why something like NanoGPT is the next best thing you can do. You can access it over Tor, you can pay with Monero, and you can, if you're really afraid of like typing stylism, right, your keyboard analysis, right, you can like write it somewhere else and then paste it. You could paste that into NanoGPT. So you can maintain some level of reasonable privacy. Obviously, that still requires scripts, and scripts are how you get pwned on Tor. But at least you're better than just like having a script subscription straight up to Google or whatever. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that's my
It
rant
seems-
on LLMs.
Yeah, it seems like it's also it's the easiest thing to do. But you're saying if you're running your own models, you just don't have enough compute power to really benefit from it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that unless you want to spend $100,000 or more on a GPU cluster, you're going to have a really hard time running the actually top of the line
Yeah.
models that can produce good work for you.
And that's always going to be the case, right? So you'll
Yeah.
always, yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm running this incredibly advanced model on my CPU. You can do it now. We figured it out." It's like, no. That's a quant model, and the outputs are really, really degraded in terms of their quality and reliability. So
that is very good to know.
DeepSeek might have overcome that to some extent, but I use the best models that are available, and it's still like if you're doing advanced work, you're still gonna you have to be really careful with how you use these things. They're not.
What are
just
your preferred models?
If I'm doing code, I generally like to use Gemini Pro. If I'm doing kind of an architectural discussion, really any of them are pretty good. O3, Gemini, and Claude 4 Opus. Often I will actually like put the same prompt into two different models just to see what they output. Probably Gemini. If you're doing code, Gemini Pro is just, I haven't seen anything that is at that level. Claude is close, but I see Claude tell me stuff, especially when it comes to maybe obscure tools. Like I was trying to use some database the other day, and Claude was confidently asserting the absolutely like opposite of the truth. And then after going back and forth and doing some testing, I finally realized it was Gemini that had it more correct. So anyways, there's a lot more to be said about how to use these things in a way that's like congruent with what they do. There's a lot of arguments that's just completely tangential to like how you should actually be using this as a tool. But, we won't get too deep into that at the moment. Maybe I could talk about it later or something.
All right. Well, let's take it away. Price. It looks like Monero was starting to come back up again a little bit relative to others, but I think the whole crypto market itself took a step down. But yeah, tell us all about it, man. Oh, yeah, let me bring it up.
Should be good now.
Boom. There we
go. Yeah, okay, so we're looking here at the 1 hour chart on Monero. And can you make sure to put the charts on full screen for this segment, Doug?
Yeah. Doop. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, we're looking here at the 1 hour chart for Monero. And our price hasn't actually been doing that great for the past week. I think I left you guys off. Let's see, it was Saturday. No, it was Sunday. Yeah, we left off right around here, and I was kind of saying, hey, this looks reasonably okay. Little bit of an odd structure, kind of like a double bottoming. Right here had been a double bottoming, but now that's kind of like a triple bottom, I guess. This isn't exactly the kind of best price action that I'd want to see to hope that we're going more upside here. At the same time, again, I think Monero's going to generally follow whatever the rest of the market does. Whoever that dude was that was buying all the Monero, it seems like he's either slowed down or reversed his position, or maybe there's just Monero holders out there that have been waiting. It's possible that there are people out there that have been waiting for a long time to get back to some reasonable price to sell it. So the speculators out there could be causing a little bit of consternation at the moment. This doesn't this is not a show is over kind of thing. it would be a little bit odd to me to actually get back down here to this like 240 level, but in a kind of like, I don't want to say bear market, but in any kind of like crash scenario or market consternation, let's just say, right? Flash crashes, etc. Like you could see Monero coming back down to this level potentially. I think a lot of it just depends. I'm not gonna lie, guys. A lot of it probably depends on what that guy who lifted that 300 million Bitcoin, and a lot of it probably depends on whether he intends to stay or she intends to stay in Monero or not. So I hate to I hate to say that at the moment, but a lot of this pump was induced by that event. So you have to understand that that the nature of how the price plays out here for Monero could also be influenced by their intentions. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Then again, the sell side liquidity was so thin down here that it's, again, it's difficult to think that if price gets down here that it could stay there for long, right? If price gets down to that $240, $230 level, it's probably going to be the case that a lot of people are going to be looking at that saying, oh, there was my chance, Monero's finally broken out, I can actually get back in, right? There's going to be a lot of heavy buying pressure down here. So yeah, I mean, I think that we have reasonably good supports at the 230, 240 level. It would be a little bit dire to get all the way back down there. I shouldn't say dire, that's just me being colorful with my language, but it wouldn't it wouldn't exactly be a happy moment. You kind of want to hang on to some of these gains and then try and keep pushing towards the upside, which is reasonably possible, right? I actually don't have any opinions about where the Monero price goes here, and I usually try not to be too focused on trading Monero, as I've told you guys before. So I really trade other stuff, not Monero. Mostly I just, if I have gains, I'll move them into Monero. Okay, so we're looking here at the Bitcoin versus Monero price on the 4-hour. And yeah, it looks like we're effectively, this would actually be a reasonably good chart, technically speaking, right? To say that, from TA analysis, to say that, hey, there's a good chance that we form some kind of bottom, maybe try to come towards the top side. I would say, though, that in terms of Monero breaking out relative to Bitcoin's price, there is going to have to be some period of time here before, like, of consolidation, before I think we could really break towards the top side. So, for example, getting above this level, right, that upper standard deviation level that was just formed, and then obviously this line right here, if you guys remember where that horizontal level of significance, the reason that we have that goes all the way back to like 2018 effectively. Let's go to the weekly chart. That would be more apparent. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so you can see that this line right here is there, or sorry, it doesn't go back to 2018. It goes back to the last bull market, so 2021. So it probably will take some consolidation before the XMR versus BTC ratio can actually overcome this line. When I say some consolidation, I mean like, maybe a period of months, potentially weeks if we're lucky, but more likely probably months. So I don't think I see anything else here necessarily that looks of interest for the Monero chart. Let's take a look at the hash rate. So hash rate seems to basically be doing the same thing. We had the big spike with the release of Tari, and then seems that hash rate has kind of come back down, but it's only come back down to the place where we left off. So, and it's actually still slightly above. So I guess I was kind of hoping we would hang on to the hash rate gains from Tari, but maybe a bunch of people jumped in there excited, and then maybe there were some issues with Tor and all that, and so some people left that. Probably a great way. Like, I mean, there's a reasonably good chance that Tari is going to price perform, at some point here. Most new coins do, and Tari is the new like private smart contracts platform. And while we, have hopes out for Darkfire or whatever, like they're still, they still haven't released a production, chain yet. So with that, we could actually look at the Tari price. So Tari price actually almost looks kind of like the hash rate, where it had a big boost and then it kind of came back down. So probably get on XMR Bazaar. You could probably find some Tari on there. I think they added it to some other exchange as well. I can't remember. Was it MEXC? I don't think it was MEXC. There's another exchange out there. If someone knows what it is, they can sing out. But just go buy it on XMR Bazaar, right? Fuck the exchanges, right? Exchange. If you want to get into Tari, either mine it and contribute to Monero's hash rate, or go find someone that's selling it on XMR Bazaar and just deal with them directly and cut the exchanges out of that equation if you can. Maybe there's even Tari. I don't know. Is there Tari on Reto? I have no idea. Anyhow, that would be interesting if there was Tari on Reto. So again, use the tools that we have. Okay, Monero transactions also sitting here around, the 20,000, 25,000 area, sort of seems to be oscillating in between that. So we've come back down a little bit from where we were previously back in January, February, March. It seems like we were 25 to 30. We're in a little bit of a lull here. Things in general for crypto feel kind of like they're in a little bit of a lull. LOL and LUL and a lull. So yeah, things have kind of like meandered towards the downside, flat, whatever. Bcash seems like it's done a little bit of movement towards the upside recently. So Bcash is one of the better performers as of the past, let's just say week or so. Could look at Bitcoin here. So we're on Bitcoin 1 hour. Why don't we actually go to the longer time frame here? Maybe the daily. That's too long. 4 hour. So we've been talking about this structure for a while. Effectively, earlier this year when Bitcoin made its new all-time highs, it set a new set. It set a new set of upper standard deviation bands, these blue bands that I just drew out there, right? And usually that's going to act as support, right? You've broken out, you've actually shown the propensity for breaking out, maybe even a little bit too far, right back here. And then you come back down, you touch this area, you only touch it, you don't hang out down there, you touch it, and then you try to get higher. So at the moment, this is not quite as strong as it could be, but it's still not terrible, right? Like overall price is still tending to be here after coming down here. So that's a higher low. This kind of movement would be extremely reasonable to do something like that. So we're probably, and with the way that Bitcoin price has unfolded for like the past 2 years, we are probably in a consolidation phase. We are probably in a poke it with a stick and it's going to do nothing for like a few weeks here kind of phase. You could probably swing trade this if you want, right? You could swing trade this range right here. That might yield you some productive profits if you're so inclined to be a trader. We've got this new board that apparently kicked off, and I feel like the markets, like, they just don't want to believe it's over. And even the insiders, like, I don't think they want to believe it's over. So you have to understand there's always more money to be made on the long side than on the short side. Because if something goes up 10x, right, in value or in price, at least, value is subjective or whatever, but if something goes up 10x, like, you've just 10x'd your money on zero leverage, right? You have no leverage. You bought the thing and it went up 10x, right? If you short something, hypothetically, yeah, you could do it on leverage, and but really you only stand to gain the amount of money that your counterparty has invested. And after that, you have to go through the courts. If you're doing like futures trading, you'd have to go through some sort of intermediary through the courts to take everything that they have. But everything that they have has a limit. But the amount of money that can be printed, or the value that something could go, a new company, right, like that actually does something real, like say an Uber or whatever, right, the latest thing, a company can go from a very small valuation to billions and billions of dollars, and your investment can do 100x, can do 1000x, right? The point is that shorting the market always has less return than longing the market. So like, the mentality of the big finance bros is they generally want to be long. They generally want to take loans and print money, and like, if things can keep going, they want it to keep going. So at the moment, I'm going by feels here, guys. I really am, in a big way, kind of going by feels, but I do have a couple indicators of that. So oil has actually come back up, and I don't know if you guys remember, but we did talk about this for maybe like in the past week or so. We said, oil is actually holding its own here. It seems to be consolidating, and if it ends up recovering, right, if it ends up getting back into the zone, the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex, this could indicate good news for stocks, right? The other thing that we need to keep in mind here is that the Trump tariffs got struck down by a federal court. They appealed that, and the appellate court said, well, keep them in place for now, but we're going to review this. Both sides can present their case. We thought that was going to take 6 to 9 months, but they fast-tracked it. So the court has said they're going to hear this case, even though the Trump tariffs are still in place. And again, remember we talked last week, this is a framework of tariffs. There's like a whole bunch of different laws that they drew on to make these tariffs. The new ones, many of the new ones that they've been implementing, a lot of them were based on this law that doesn't even mention tariffs. And so the lower, one of the federal courts struck it down. specifically because hey, this is unconstitutional. You exceeded your authority. This legislation doesn't give you the authority to do that. And I know they don't have the authority anyways, ever, always. But from that paradigm, right, from the putting your legal hat on here and your market analysis hat, the court said, okay, we're going to keep those tariffs in place just to not cause turmoil, market turmoil, or whatever. It's called emergency relief, is what the Trump administration sought and got a couple weeks ago. But the court said, hey, we're going to fast track this case. We're going to hear it before the end of the summer. So like, I don't know, mid-July, end of July. And so the point is that the market is looking at the situation saying, yeah, okay, we still technically have the tariffs in place for another couple months, but that shit's probably, maybe it'll go away, right? Probably the appellate court is going to uphold the decision of the lower court and keep those tariffs say that those tariffs are unconstitutional and strike them down, right? Whereas before, the market was looking at, well, I don't know when this court is going to hear this case. It could take 9 months. It could be until next year, and the tariffs are rolling the entire time, right? That was negative. But the fact they kind of bumped that up, and the market just doesn't want to believe that it's over. The market doesn't want to think that there's a macro crash in the cards here. The market wants things to keep going up. And so I think they probably will. Ultimately, for the meantime. I know it's like that. That's a lot of feels, right? I'm inputting a lot of feels into that shit. So it's just keep that in mind. But sometimes, markets are not rational. So any of you that have the rational market hypothesis, get that out of your heads. That's not how markets work. Anyways, in terms of feels, you can see that the NASDAQ almost set new all-time highs this week. They were very, very close, just within like 1% of new all-time highs. Probably there needs to be some consolidation at this level. So again, we're probably looking at something like that. There was, all of this was the big bounce back from when we said, hey, things are getting problematic. The Trump tariffs looks like they're going to cause problems. And then Liberation Day, right? And then suddenly, oh, wait, Liberation Day is on hold. And then everything comes back, right? So we kind of tracked all that in real time. We were just ahead of the curve here on the show, just ahead of it, except for the crash. Actually, we kind of nailed the crash from talking about that in January and calling for end of March, early April to be that time frame. But after that, things got kind of basically dependent on what the administration wanted to do. And it's a crazy way for markets to unfold. But they're insider trading the shit out of that, and they know that they can't. So anyways, we're probably looking at some consolidation here. We've got certain levels here, statistical levels. These are typically going to hold. All we need here is consolidation. We don't need we don't even need this thing to go back down here. Like normally other charts, I would say, hey, we might need to come revisit here, but this is the stock market. So you have to understand the individual chart that's that we're talking about here. It's even possible that this thing could, instead of consolidating here, it's totally possible it could do something like this, right? That's also possible. With the Iran war starting to kick off, right? The Israelis attacked Iran. That's why the oil price pumped, by the way. It's kind of funny. It's obviously the primary driver of this candle here. Was the fact that Israel attacked Iran, and then there's a question mark. Well, Iran has the Persian Gulf, or they're next to it, and could they set up a bunch of mines in the Persian Gulf and start kicking out oil tankers? Who knows? Obviously, that would expand the scope of the war and get the United States involved, which is, I think, what the United States wants to do. But sometimes these things happen, and then they just blow over. Israel hits Iran, Iran kind of hits Israel. They're like, fuck you, fuck you, Tony. Right. They kind of do that for a minute and then things cool down. So I don't really know, but it's kind of there's a dangerous situation going on here in terms of, in terms of warfare and whatnot. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. I guess I need to think about how that might affect markets some more, but it does look okay. That pushed oil up and the Trump tariffs are on the ropes, and, there's probably still optimism. So at any rate, the macro crash thesis is kind of still off the table for the moment. That doesn't mean that markets have to go up next week. Again, we're looking at more likely than not some level of consolidation here. But, it could actually just get to here, and maybe it doesn't need, Bitcoin could just start going up from here and not actually take another round trip to the downside. So in other words, consolidation with a slight upward bias is effectively what I'm trying to communicate here. So I wouldn't be shorting this market, right? If anything, I would not be shorting this market, guys. It's probably not a good idea. I wouldn't be selling my cryptos here. I wouldn't be selling my risk assets. At least just hold your positions for now. There's no reason to do anything. Let's take a look at commodities. I actually added this right here. So these are over. This is the RISI is apparently, I just found this out in the past couple of days. RISI is apparently a spattering of commodities, right? It's supposed to be representative of the various market caps of the different commodities, like market caps, using that term loosely. But the relative market size of the different commodities. So yeah, of course, this thing has upticked in the past few days. It makes sense, right? There's a war out. Same thing like when the Ukraine war happened. That global shipping and commodities extraction and refinement is going to become that much more difficult, and the uncertainty of the situation also starts getting priced in. So it wouldn't surprise me to see commodities start to go up. That would actually that would weigh on inflation, right? That would cause inflation to increase probably, right? That would make these inflation numbers, even more sticky and probably take a tick up. I wouldn't be surprised at all at this point if the inflation starts going up. There's a Fed meeting next week. They're probably not going to say anything. I don't know. Maybe they'll lower rates. I don't know what the market view is on whether they're going to lower rates or not. My guess is they're not going to lower rates. They're just going to keep everything where it is. But the markets are starting to get a little overheated, and we have these commodities starting to tick up here. So perhaps, but I mean, it's really like, look at this chart. This is 2025. Commodities have been at this level already. So it's probably nothing, right? Like I don't think the Fed is really going to say anything or do anything of that much importance. Okay, so we've covered. You know what we didn't cover last week was bonds. Let's look at bonds, see what the bond market's telling us, if anything. Isaac Anholtz, don't worry, bro. I'm not a pro. I'm just a fucking idiot. I thought I made that clear when I was talking to the Nano guy, and I told him I was a retard. So don't worry, bro. Keep your panties on for now. Okay, Shortwave Surfer actually gave us a tip. I don't know if Doug, if you want to put Shortwave Surfer's comment up here. Oh, wait, that's Shortwave Surfer tipped. Shortwave Surfer 2009 tipped 10 cents. I'm the crazy person who has just used AI for the first time recently. No. There's another one. So we've got. Okay, so Paranoid tipped 4 cents. Can we get a no JavaScript version of Nano GPT? That's a great question. I have no idea. We'd have to ask our bro. I would say probably that's going to be really difficult, or it's going to be really like clunky to use. I have to imagine it would be incredibly clunky to use because they've got to render it, so you've got to do like markdown formatting. So I guess you could probably just do markdown locally, but again, that's probably JavaScript. So yeah, that's probably going to be difficult. Shortwave Surfer 2009 tip 10 cents. Monero has done exactly what it was supposed to do. Back to the 60-day SMA. It was way too high. Wait, bro, I thought 60 days. I thought you were using a different SMA. Let's go take a look. Actually, let's go to this chart. I always hate going to my quad chart on live because then you guys get to see, you get to snoop on what I've been looking at lately. Apparently, I was looking at Tron. Okay, let's go to XMR USD, and then let's drop into here the SMA moving average simple, just for funsies. All right, so there's 9. Let's go to 60 on the days. Oh, that's not a very dark line, bro. It wasn't. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't the 60-day. It was something. It was like it was the 1 year, wasn't it? You were using the 300-day or like the 365-day, the 1 year moving average, I thought. But yeah, you are always going to drop back to like the moving averages are a magnet, right? They are a magnet for price, mean reversion, if you want to put it technically. Let me overlay something here. If I could type, okay. No, we want to do just the regular one. Yeah, we'll do both of those. All right, this will take just a second to load. And I got to do a little thing here. Sorry, I know dead air, right? They say don't ever have silence on the air, never dead air. Yeah, so the moving average clusters, you can see what we're looking at here. They tend to be mean reversion, a magnet for price, and you'll notice that that's kind of what Monero did for a very long period of time, right? It basically just occupied the big, broad moving average clusters. And over long periods of time, yeah, especially with stable assets, with trending assets, moving averages become less useful, especially assets that are very exponential like the stock market. So if we drop down here into the 1 hour and we just look at things in terms of the moving averages, I'm not seeing anything too interesting. Maybe 2 hour time frame. Yeah, there's really not too much here useful, interesting on the moving averages. There's kind of this cluster, but it seems to be dissolving, right? That moving average cluster is already dissolving. So I guess nothing to see there, folks, except for the 60-day. Now it's the 60-day moving average. Hey, but by the way, like shortwave, I'm just joking with you. Like, it is a good idea if the market profile changes to also adjust your parameters, right? So if you're like, hey, Monero market has been stable for a very long time, the price has been stable, and now we're trending, let me update the way that I go about this. That's a good thing, right? The ability to pivot, to reanalyze, and to augment and improve, etc. Those are the kinds of things that are going to help you make better decisions rather than getting married to some particular schema, if you will. We have another super chat here from Big Booty Latina. Doug, if you want to put that one on screen, I'll grab that one as well. All right, Big Booty Latina tipped $1, a whole dollar. Shit, did you get that on the poll? MN lawmaker and her husband, Minnesota lawmaker and her husband assassinated in their homes. Can civil unrest go higher? What do markets do? Well, I'll tell you what markets do. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Remember, we established early on, I'm a retard and I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I just saw that. I saw that headline this morning. Someone impersonating was that the same one where someone was impersonating a police officer and went and shot like 2 or 3 different, I don't know, lawmaker, Congress people. But they were impersonating a police officer and they opened their door and then just got wasted. So there's like a manhunt going on for that person. And it's like, wow, that's dangerous shit. Like, that's actually like when there's copycat people that do crimes all the time. So if someone goes and starts copycatting those crimes and like one side reacts and the other side reacts and then the things just like devolve, then Palantir can make their database because it's violent, right? And it seems like violence instigation is the name of the game for the past, I don't know, let's just say like 5-6 months now. Like, the tariffs themselves are an instigation of violence. That's what taxation is. And now we've got there was obviously the Gaza tragedy, genocide happening, and then now there's Israel and Iran, and obviously America is like going to do what Israel says, and they're like trying to pretend like there's some neutrality, but then Trump's like, we told them to make a deal, it was the best deal ever that they were ever going to get, and now it's going to get worse for them, and stupid shit, right? Like, and then they're deporting people, and then they're like shipping bricks into LA so that people can start vandalizing, and the feds can go in there and vandalize and instigate, and it's just like it's a clusterfuck, guys. That's what's going on there. So what does that mean for markets? It means uncertainty, but destruction also implies some level of rebuilding. So the best I could tell you at the moment, probably commodities go up. Oh shit, we didn't even talk about gold. Like gold, take a look at gold. Like gold, this is bullish, guys. Gold, this is a bullish pattern here. And it's crazy to me because, as we've talked about, the purple line up here at the top effectively represents a macro, typically in most assets, especially long established assets. This purple line right here typically represents a macro top for the asset. So I mean, I guess this thing could hypothetically just kind of like continue on riding this line. I don't really ever see that. Usually it hits this line for maybe somewhere between a day and a month, and then it'll end up reversing, right, and not getting back there. But it's also extremely possible that we have entered fundamentally new territory. These tariffs are a fundamentally different thing than the market has seen for decades. It's very possible that we are entering some kind of new fundamental territory when it comes to the markets and the macro and everything. So we just got to keep that in the back of our minds right now. Like, it's the signal here is telling us that something is different this time. So it's not that like my hopium wants to tell you something is different this time and gold's going to 10,000, right? Because I have gold. It's more like the indicator that the statistical analysis is telling us, hey, this usually doesn't happen. Something fundamentally is likely driving this. It's probably more than just speculation. So, all right, let's go to bonds. I said we'd look at bonds, even though they're the most boring part of the price report. Maybe you guys can debate which is the most boring part of the price report. Yeah, so the yield curve continues to uninvert slowly. And nothing interesting here is happening with bonds. If there's a macro crash coming, maybe this shit could just take longer than we thought, right? So that's one of the like problems with the macro crash and looking at these patterns. These are extremely long patterns. So we can say, hey, it usually happens between X and X. So we kind of entered that window like last November, but it just didn't matter because the Bitcoin president and the hype. And then he comes in and makes the tariffs, right? And then there's the tariff scare and things look like it might start to macro crash, but then like, it's like, no, just kidding. We're not going to do that. Then we've also got this situation where the M2 money supply just keeps shooting up, right? So I really, really wish I could get a real-time estimate on the M2 because this is delayed by like a month. We are looking at like a month-long delay, and there are people that do estimates, but you have to pay a lot of money to get onto like Bloomberg Terminal or some of the other places that that actually do the M2 money estimates. And basically, the economy follows what the M2 is doing. We have this interesting situation where the Fed has been selling off their balance sheet, right? So obviously, you know, this was the C word event back in 2020. Massive expansion of the M2 money supply, but it's been bleeding off ever since, right? They've been selling that, and that's a very large amount. That's from $9 trillion down to $6.5 trillion of Federal Reserve balance sheet, and primarily this is mortgage-backed securities. If you remember, probably some other stuff got mixed in there. Actually, I don't really know, but you'll notice like the sell-off here of the Federal Reserve balance sheet also corresponds with this sort of like flattening out of the housing market. Like there has been barely a new higher high, and it doesn't look like this year that a new higher high or barely a new higher high is going to be made in terms of the cost of housing. So probably that's kind of good in a certain way for inflation because rents and housing was apparently like part of that, big part of that. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. At any rate, it's an interesting dichotomy that we're seeing that the M2 is going up. So that's giving support to risk assets, stock markets and crypto, et cetera, even as the housing market is not making similar gains. In fact, if your paradigm was to buy real estate and buy houses and flip houses and all that, that paradigm has been on hold for like quite a period of time here. Like really ever since the top of the market in 2021, early 2022. Since then, it's been much harder to do that. And the reason probably is because the Federal Reserve is selling off their toxic mortgage-backed securities, some of them, right? So that's making it harder for the housing market to go up. There's probably all kinds of insider shady dynamics that are going on there that I'm not aware of. Yet I digress. Let's go ahead and finish off by taking a look at the privacy shitcoins. Here's Xano. Cool. Xano's doing a thing. Make your own decisions. Pirate Chain hasn't done anything either. I don't think anyone's even trying to poke it with a stick. They're all just like hoping and praying that, that something like this happens, but I wouldn't count on it at this point. Other privacy coins are now coming into the space, right? I don't even know why I still have Daro here. I just don't have anything else. I'll replace this with Tari, but for now we need a full price history on Tari, which goes back just 1 month and it's not on exchanges yet. So we got to look at Tari this way instead of a nice, beautiful consolidated way. And then Zcash has had a pullback. How much has it pulled back? Just a measly 20%, nothing. Just 20%, that's not much. And I think that's actually how much Monero's pulled back, if I'm being totally honest. From the top there, 26%. Yeah, but also Zcash didn't get the kind of pump that Monero got although they certainly looks like they kind of tried, right? The thing that you have to realize with Zcash is that they have these very, very large oscillations. And obviously, we kind of know why that is. There's really no need to get into that here at this particular moment. And then there's the Xano versus XMR chart, not really doing anything. Xano had a big move. And I mean, honestly, guys, why? Like, who cares? Like, why would you care about Xano at this point? Like, eventually, there's going to be contracts and stuff built out on Tari to do exactly what you can do on Xano, but you don't have to do like the atomic swaps gymnastics. You could probably just build a DEX. If they can do everything that ETH can do, and if they can do what Sol can do, then you can build a DEX. You can build a private smart contracts DEX on Tari. Quote me on that, because obviously I have studied this extremely deeply. I haven't. But the point is that if it's true, right, if what Ricardo's saying is true, that basically Tari, they designed it not as an assets platform, but as a smart contracts platform, then there's just no reason for Xano. I just can't see why you would care, right? Because you can natively trade all the stuff on Tari relative to your tokens, right? Relative to your meme coins and such. So anyways, Xano guys, Xano bros are going to probably hate all of that stuff that I just said, but whatever. I don't think, let's check here. Do we have any more questions? Nope, there's no XMR chats. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat here on YouTube either. All right, I guess that's all I got for you, Doug. If you want to come back and move the show along, hit the news. A lot of news.
Hello, buddy. There? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hold up. Let me switch my... Okay, here we go. All right. Thank you as always. Yeah, I think we got all the super chats, right?
Yeah, we did.
All right, man. So yeah, calling for what'd you say, 240 for Monero? Oh.
No, that's not what I called for. If it's a chick away, then I'm obviously doing a bad job with the way I present information.
No. You're talking about that. If it retraced, that would be its next stable ground, right?
Yeah, there should be. You have to expect that there would be a lot of buying down there. Like
Okay.
it was the case at this level that the sell side liquidity, people that were interested in selling Monero had just nearly evaporated. There was so little sell volume or sell liquidity on the books that the only thing price could do ultimately was go up. And of course, it spiked up because of some hack, but probably some hack or some buyer at some point was going to come and buy up that liquidity anyways. So the point is that this right here is going to have a lot of buying support, right? There's going to be people that either sold this and want to get back in, or people that feel like they missed the boat, right? That kind of dynamic. Monero has a few extra eyes on it because it performed so well for a period of time. Everybody knows what Monero is now. Almost everybody respects it except for the absolute most degenerate laser eyes. Most of the laser eyes actually now respect Monero reasonably well, except for a couple that are just, well, they're autistic, and they're not even autistic. They just hide behind, like, they're like Elon Musk, who isn't really Asperger's, but just kind of uses it for their social awkwardness. Yet I digress.
So big picture though, you see the market event falling off a cliff at some point, like the
Well, I
broader
mean, it
market,
always does. It's going to at some point. Eventually,
but
that will be
somewhat near, in a somewhat near point.
No, I'm at what I said is that we're right now, for the foreseeable future, for the next, let's say, weeks, perhaps a couple months, markets either need to consolidate, but with some positive upward pressure, right? I see consolidation in the future here, but things could also potentially break out. A lot could depend on what happens geopolitically. A lot could depend on like news events and where the whole Iran-Israel thing goes, and what happens with the tariffs ultimately in the courts. But for the meantime, in the near-term horizon, the name of the game is neutral to slightly positive.
And I haven't been paying close attention to this, but it seems like they're talking about a potential new Fed chair and stuff, right? Getting appointed.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think Trump can actually remove Jerome Powell. I think that he can ask him to resign, and Powell could oblige, or he could not oblige. And so far, Powell has said no. So yeah, he might.
But
not.
if that were the case, that would be kind of very predictable lower and lower interest rates, I would think, right?
Yeah, if that happened, he's probably going to put a guy in there that's going to drop the interest rates, and that's actually becomes concerning if they start dropping interest rates, because that follows the pattern of leading into macro crash, right? As interest rates start going down, eventually the market turns south. Usually they start lowering interest rates because they see the disaster coming and they're trying to get ahead of it. And I say that from like a certain paradigm, like they make the disaster, they know what's happening, they're like managing it all the way down. So just know when I say things like that, there's kind of like two sides to see that, like there's kind of a foot in both paradigms, if you will.